Welcome back to our last session of Home Improvement. In this session, I'm concerned for those parents. My heart just goes out to those parents who have challenges with their children that don't seem to go away. Oh, they've tried all kinds of ideas to help their children, and I think there's an approach that we can have if we understand good theology here. So I want to look at a theology of strongholds. That's the last chapter in the book, Home Improvement. And as you look at the book and you read it, you'll see Craig and Marlene discovering some difficult challenges and then developing a strategy to address them. It is that strategy that you can apply, but I want to tie it back into this theology. What are strongholds anyway? And how can we help our children overcome them? How can they grow in their lives as a result of some of the challenges they have? God can do some great things in our kids' lives. It may not seem like it now because they're stuck. How do we get stuck children unstuck? That's what we're going to look at today. There's sometimes you have problems in a child's life that normal parenting books do not address. I want to spend some time talking about those in this particular session because I think we need to have a plan for these. In fact, I'm going to call this a theology of strongholds. A stronghold is something that's taking place inside of a child's heart when the normal good things we do in parenting don't work. And so we have inside of the child's heart this stronghold that needs to be overcome in their lives. How we can help children make these changes? This understanding strongholds is going to be the key to bringing about some significant solution inside of a child's heart. Often I'll have a parent come and say, I've raised 3 kids and this 4th child, I just don't know what to do with him. He's not getting anywhere in his life. And I think, you know what? We're going into this material, a theology of strongholds, because this child has some things going on inside of the heart that need to be changed, and he's resisting the normal good things that you read in parenting books. So we're going there today now to talk in this session about a theology of strongholds. In order to do that, I want to read the passage of Scripture that talks about them because they are inner arguments. This passage comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 4 and 5, and it reads this way. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. These strongholds are internal arguments. And the passage in here is talking about these strongholds we develop that are against Christ. But we can broaden the idea to understand that people develop these strongholds inside of their hearts, these patterns of thinking that get them into trouble in their lives. I encounter a number of these kind of cyclical thinking that children experience that are examples of these strongholds. For example, let me give you a list of 7 things I often see in a child who has a significant cyclone going on inside of their hearts. One is they have a poor response to correction. And then they believe that they're victims. They blame problems on other people. If everybody else would change, I'd be fine. So you have the victim mentality. Then they have an entitlement mentality that says, you owe me. That other parents would do this, or you do this with my brother, but you don't do this with me, or you're always treating me as the bad guy. So it's this entitlement that you owe me. Then comes these 3 statements that sometimes children will make. One is, that's not fair. And then the next one is, you don't listen to me. And the next one is, you don't understand me. Now that often leads to a 6th thing, which is this pool of negativity that exists, where a child becomes negative and sometimes hostile or resistant or critical or complaining or whining, whatever it is, this negativity that's pervasive in their life. And that leads then to this pool of bitterness. And you know bitterness when you see it, because bitterness is anger that's out of control. It's anger that happens more often than situations warrant and is more intense than a situation warrants. And so sometimes when I'm dealing with a difficult situation, I'll say to a family, or I'll say to parents, of those 7 things, how many things are true about your situation? And if a child has a particular problem in that area, many parents will say, all of those. You've described my child to a T. You must live in our home. And that is a pervasive problem that needs a lot of work, requiring the addressing of strongholds inside of a child's life. So that's why it's so important to talk about this. And I want to kind of lay this out in a way that will help you to address strongholds that you see in your child's life. I think that one of the things we want to do when we see a problem like this is we want to go and list the problem. This is not something you're going to show to your child, but you're just going to list the problems you see. And sometimes a parent will list a page of, a whole bunch of problems they're seeing, all these things that they're seeing that are negative in their child. And then I'll say, okay, let's take those now and group them, because often you can group them around anger issues, selfishness issues, entitlement issues, and you can go along and group them. So now we have 5 or 6 instead of 50 things that we're looking at, and that helps us identify the problem more clearly. And as we're identifying the problem, we're able to see what's really going on in the heart a little bit more and what needs to take place. But then we want to focus on the solution. Now, many children have good character qualities in their lives that have a negative side effect. You'll see a list of these in the chapter number 8 in Home Improvement. You'll see a list of qualities that you'll be able to identify in the chapter that are good qualities that have negative side effects. For example, let's take a child who is neat and orderly, has a room that's very clean, for which you're grateful, but they are so structured that they're so unable to handle interruptions in their lives. If we have a spontaneous thing we have to go do, this child gets all upset because things have to be in order and all neat in their lives. And so they have a problem in that area of their lives, but it's really a good quality misused, and they need another quality to come along of flexibility that will help them with that. But let's take the child who's very flexible and easygoing and can be very spontaneous and at the drop of a hat go and do whatever we want to do. We like that about that child, but you look at their bedroom and you go, you got to be kidding me. This child lives with flexibility, all right. Everything's flexible in their room. So then that child needs another character quality to come in, or quality of orderliness, to help them manage their flexibility. You see, there's a lot going on in the heart, a lot of character. There's a lot of things happening inside of a child's life. And so often when we see a stronghold going on, a child has something good that we want to be able to talk about, and then we want to be able to take advantage of that and help them see that we need to work on something. One family came to me. They had an 11-year-old boy, and Dad described the boy as a terrorist in their home, he said. And I said, why don't you tell me what that means? He said, well, our son always has another way of doing stuff. He doesn't only not do what we tell him to do, but he's always telling us what to do. He's always got a better way to do things. And I made a comment, kind of laughing. I said, sounds like you're raising a leader, because leaders have opinions about how everyone else should fit into their plans, including their parents. And we laughed about that a little bit, and they agreed. But Dad took that idea home to his son. And he said to him, son, I can tell you're going to be a leader someday. You have all kinds of ideas about how to get things done, do things. And I want to come alongside you, and I want to help you. I want to help you to be the best leader you could be. You know, there's some leaders who are not good leaders. They're tyrants. There are other leaders who know how to be responsive to people and how to lead well. And since you have gifts in the leadership area, I want to help you to be more effective in your ability to lead other people. This boy changed overnight. Dad said it was this attitude that I brought to this whole picture that really helped my son see that I was coaching him. And I said to him, we're going to start with some cooperation exercises. I'm going to teach you what cooperation looks like. I'm going to give you instructions and expect you to give up your agenda and do them so you can practice what cooperation looks like. And he did. And the boy responded because he knew he had these skills in leadership. He was unhappy with himself, as most children are when they're creating havoc and they're stuck in their lives. And here's this boy who grasps onto this idea of being a leader, and Dad's able to coach him along, and they see some great progress in him because they used a strength and took that strength into areas of weakness to help him make changes. So one, we want to look at the problem and group the problem. Next, we want to identify the solution, and what character quality does this child need that we can move forward? And then we want to start working that solution so we can stretch the child a bit. And what I mean by this is we're going to put the child into intentional, uncomfortable situations with a plan so the child can grow a little bit in their ability to handle life. a child who tends to be angry a lot, we might interrupt them intentionally, explaining to them, here's what we're going to do. I want you to know that I want to help you to be able to respond better to life, and you get frustrated sometimes. So when you're doing something, I'm going to interrupt you, and I'm going to expect you to stop what you're doing right away and come to me when I call your name. Now, I don't believe all children need to come immediately when their parents call them. Sometimes we can negotiate that. But if a child's working on some internal stuff like this, maybe a child for a period of time needs to stop what they're doing right away, whatever it is, and come, because inside of their heart they're working on something. They're working on this ability to let it go. Letting it go is one of those skills that helps us to be more emotionally flexible. We all know that, right? That if you're angry or you're anxious or you're sad and despairing, you have to be able to let things go. When you are helping a child learn to let something go, when you call their name and they come, you are exercising in the same part of their heart as emotional stability. You're teaching them how to let things go in practice in their lives, and you're putting them into controlled, frustrating situations in order to make change in their lives. We're not trying to be mean, but we are trying to help our children grow and develop and understand what this looks like in some very practical terms. It's going to mean practice. We're going to do this a lot. So if we're going to make changes in a child's life who has a stronghold, we want to give them a new way of thinking and acting in their lives, and then we're going to practice this new way of acting. We're going to give them opportunities to do that. This is going to take place in sibling conflict a lot. Sometimes parents ask me about sibling conflict. What do we do? My kids fight a lot. And I would say there's a number of things we can do. But first, let's discipline these children independently. Let's not treat them as equals. Let's not treat them as the same. And some parents, oh no, I have to treat them the same. No, you don't. In fact, when God works with us, He doesn't treat us all the same. He gives us different spiritual gifts. We have a number of parables that talk about differences that exist. In one parable, one got 5 talents, one got 2 talents, one got 1 talent. There's no discussion of whether that's fair or not. That's just what that person can handle. And the landowner holds them accountable to what he gave them. So that's important. Even in the end of the Gospel of John, Jesus is telling Peter how he's going to die. And Peter says, what about him? Pointing to John. And Jesus says, what is it to you if I allow him to remain until I come again? Well, Jesus is basically saying, you worry about you and me. Don't worry about anybody else. I think sometimes our children compete and compare, and parents try to treat them equally, and it increases the competition and comparison. We must stop that. So we don't treat children the same. We want to help children develop a plan. So if 2 children are fighting, we may just pull out one of them. Even though they're both at fault, it's okay. We pull out one of them. And we say, look, what did you do wrong in that engagement? And he says, well, he took my toy. And you say, okay, I know, he did the wrong thing. We're going to talk to him in a minute. But we wonder, what did you do wrong? I hit him. So we're helping that one child deal with his particular problem. What we're doing is we're trying to help children deal with their issues by taking responsibility for them. So what we're doing is we're practicing this whole idea of dealing with the strongholds. It happens in sibling conflict a lot. If you take 2 children who are fighting, you've got 2 selfish children. It's often helpful to say, okay guys, I want you to sit next to each other, face each other, and I want you to talk about it together. And they sit there like they're in trouble. So you're not in trouble, talk about it. They don't know what to say. So you say to the first one, start this way, I have an idea. And the first one says, I have an idea, I should get that Lego piece. And I say, okay, that's an idea. What do you think about that? I don't like that idea. Well, you start with an idea. Well, my idea is I should get the Lego piece. Okay, well, you guys got ideas. Why don't you now talk about it and come up with an idea? And when you have an idea that works, come and talk to me. Now we're teaching children to solve problems for themselves. This is really big. When children can learn how to solve problems for themselves, big things happen in their lives. And so we're empowering them through practice sessions. Frankly, living with your brother is part of your therapy in order to develop the life skills you need to deal with life. I was working with one boy, he's in my office, and he's 14 years old, and he had a 9-year-old annoying brother. And so I turned to the parents and I said, is it true that the 9-year-old is annoying? And they said, yes, he actually is annoying. So now we have a certified annoying brother. And the boy, I said to him, okay, so you're living with an annoying brother. I think God placed him in your family for a particular reason, probably for you. And the boy says, why? I said, so you can learn how to relate to him better. And you can get along with him better. Why? He says. I said, well, maybe someday you're going to work in an office with an annoying person. And you're going to say, I'm sure glad I had an annoying brother, so I know how to relate to annoying people. I don't know. All I know is that God placed him in your family for a reason. And I'm going to help you know how to work with your annoying brother so you're not angry with him all the time. And so I think sibling conflict is an opportunity for children to practice problem-solving skills, persuasion skills, communication skills, knowing how to deal with mistreatment and getting help from parents or whatever. They're going to learn a lot by working with a sibling in sibling conflict situations. So we're practicing. Life is practice sessions. That's why we give children chores, because they need to practice, and it provides the arena where we're going to work on some of the challenges where children don't feel like working hard or they don't know how to work hard. We don't just say, oh, this child's had a hard life, or this child's got so much to do at school, we're not giving them chores. We allow children to experience these challenges and chores and sibling conflict and whatever so they can start working out the challenges they have. A child who has a stronghold in their lives needs to work it out and be stretched in a particular way. Let me tell you a story about a boy that came to me with his parents when he was 10 years old. And he was actually removed from the school where he was attending and said he couldn't come back until his anxiety was under control. And so we went to work right away. And in that first session, when I met with the boy at 10 years old, I said, well, let me tell you a story about another boy I worked with who was 13 years old. And I worked with him a lot. His anxiety was really bad. And they couldn't even go out of the house. I mean, it was just so terrible. And I worked with him for 11 weeks. And after 11 weeks, he said these words to me. He said, my anxiety is gone. The 10-year-old looks up at me and he says, do you think that could happen to me? You could hear the despair and also the hope, glimmers of hope in his eyes. And I said, yes, it can happen to you, but it's going to take a lot of work because we're going to have to stretch your comfort zone a little bit. We're going to have to put you into some situations where you practice handling your anxiety and you're successful at it. It's going to be work, but it's going to be worth it in the end. Well, we worked hard. We set a target date of 3 weeks on a Monday. I remember it well because we were all feeling anxious about him returning back to school. Would he be successful or not? And yes, he was. On that day, he was successful in school. And then he stayed on for the rest of the school year, and he was able to function in the classroom. It was great to watch him. That was in week 3. In week 5, he said these words to me, my anxiety is gone. Now, anybody who's experienced anxiety would say that's a miracle for anxiety to be gone. Well, let me tell you what's actually happening in this 13-year-old and 10-year-old so you understand what's taking place. Because if you understand it, you'll be able to apply it to your child who has an anger problem, or your child who's mean or is dishonest. You'll be able to help that child work on the challenges, the stronghold that they have in their lives. Here's what's actually happening. What we did with both of these boys is that they have a comfort zone that was really narrow, very small. And almost anything that happened, they would get anxious about it. So we determined to strengthen their comfort zone by expanding it. So we would put them into intentional, anxiety-producing situations that were controlled. And then they would work their plan, and then we would come back. And over time, they would stretch that. We don't just take a child who's afraid of water and throw them in the deep end and say, get used to it. What we do is we take them to the water, side of the water, and they kick their feet or blow bubbles in the water. We're stretching the comfort zone of a child. We work hard. This is a lot of hard work to do this with a person who's experiencing anxiety. It's very difficult for them to overcome their aversion to chaos or challenging situations or not knowing or something like that, which creates the anxiety. So we work on that. And we worked on it, and the comfort level increased and increased and increased over just a short period of time. So that the child then says these words. He says, really, this is what he's saying. Compared to where I was, now I have no anxiety. That's what they're saying. My anxiety is gone. Now, both of these boys and others that we work with will continue to experience anxiety in their lives. And they must have a plan to work on it. But the plan here is we take a stronghold, wherever the child's experiencing a stronghold, we give them a plan and we start stretching them, and we work in that area. We massage that area of the child's heart so that they can grow, so that they can develop. You know, the greatest stronghold that we have is sin. And Jesus Christ died on the cross so that we could be freed from the stronghold of sin, freed from the power of sin. The presence of sin still exists in our world. And we must wrestle with that, with God's grace. But Jesus Christ died for us to conquer the power of sin so that we can enjoy new life in Christ. We want our children, in whatever stronghold they're experiencing in life, we want them to experience the greatness and the goodness of God. And we want to take them into those experiences and allow them to experience God's grace in new and powerful ways.